The screech of the emergency alarm tore through the hallways of Galactic Exchange Academy, sending a wave of panic through the alien students. Felix Zimmerman froze in the middle of telling a joke to his lab partner, watching in confusion as the blue-skinned Nelvarian beside him suddenly stood at attention, 6 eyes widening in horror. "What's happening?" Felix asked, bewildered by the chaos erupting around him. It was only his 3rd day as the first human exchange student at the most prestigious interplanetary educational institution in the Orion Arm, and already something had gone terribly wrong. "The distress signals are everywhere," hissed Trazar, his lab partner, antenna vibrating frantically. "They're coming from the north wing. Many beings must be in extreme danger." Felix looked around, seeing no smoke, no signs of structural damage, nothing that would trigger an emergency response. "I don't understand. Everything seems fine to me. Listen." Trazar grabbed Felix's arm with a 3-fingered hand. "Can you not hear it? The horrible noise." Felix strained his ears, filtering through the sounds of shuffling feet and urgent alien communications. Then he heard it laughter. Genuine, joyful laughter coming from the recreation area where a group of visiting diplomats was touring the facility. "That's just people laughing," Felix said, relief washing over him. Trazar's face shifted to a shade of deeper blue, the equivalent of a human blanching. "Laughing. You know this sound?" Before Felix could respond, a squad of security drones zoomed past them, followed by several tall, gangly Zorlian security officers in protective gear. "We need to evacuate immediately," Trazar insisted, pulling Felix toward the exit. When multiple beings emit the distress signal simultaneously, it indicates a severe threat. Felix dug his heels in. Wait, this is a huge misunderstanding. On Earth, that sound laughter, it's a good thing. It means people are happy." Trazar stared at him with all 6 eyes blinking in rapid succession. "Happy? That is the sound your species makes when experiencing positive emotions. Yes, I need to talk to whoever's in charge before this turns into a diplomatic incident." The overhead announcement system crackled to life with a mechanical voice. "Attention all students and faculty. Emergency Protocol Delta 9 has been activated. Proceed to designated safety zones. This is not a drill." Felix broke away from Trazar and ran against the flow of evacuating students, ignoring his lab partner's alarmed calls. He had to reach the recreation area before the security forces did something embarrassing or worse, offensive to the human diplomats. He rounded a corner and nearly collided with Professor Vexnar, the imposing 8-limbed head of interspecies communication studies. "Professor, there's been a mistake," Felix gasped, out of breath. "The alarm, it's because of human laughter." Professor Vexnar's upper limbs twisted in the universal gesture of confusion. "Explain quickly, human Felix. The sound you're all interpreting as distress is actually how humans express joy. We call it laughter. It's completely normal and actually a sign that everything is fine." The professor's compound eyes shifted rapidly, processing this information. "Are you certain? Our xenobiological databases classify such vocalizations as universal indicators of respiratory distress or pain." "I'm positive. Look, I'll prove it." Felix pulled out his tablet and quickly found a video compilation of human comedy. He played it at full volume, and the sounds of a laughing audience filled the hallway. Several passing alien students stopped in their tracks, their body language showing clear alarm. "This is a recording of humans experiencing happiness," Felix explained. "It's a social bonding mechanism for us. When we find something funny or enjoyable, we make this sound." Professor Vexnar's sensory appendages quivered as he examined the video. "Fascinating. This contradicts our understanding of vocalizations across known sentient species. The universal translation algorithms must be recalibrated immediately. More importantly," Felix urged, "we need to stop the emergency response team from interrupting the diplomatic meeting." Professor Vexnar tapped a communication device on one of his middle limbs. "Security command, this is Professor Vexnar. Stand down immediately. We have confirmation from our human student that the sounds are not distress signals, but a form of positive communication unique to Earth species." "I repeat, stand down." Felix followed the professor as he quickly moved toward the recreation area. When they arrived, they found a scene of bewilderment. The human diplomats were surrounded by concerned security personnel offering emergency breathing apparatus and medical scanners, while the diplomats tried to explain that they were perfectly fine. "Everyone, please," Professor Vexnar announced, his voice amplified by his natural resonating chambers. "We have experienced a cultural misunderstanding. Our human guest has informed me that the vocalization we interpreted as distress is actually an expression of social bonding and positive emotion among humans. There is no emergency." The security forces looked skeptical but slowly began to lower their equipment. One of the diplomats, an older woman with silver hair, stepped forward with a diplomatic smile. "We were simply sharing some light-hearted stories," she explained. "I apologize for any confusion our laughter may have caused," Felix stepped up. "In human culture, laughter is how we connect with each other. It's a good thing, not a sign of trouble." Professor Vexnar's color shifted to a thoughtful purple. "This presents an extraordinary opportunity for cultural exchange and understanding. Felix Zimmerman, would you be willing to conduct an informational seminar on human laughter and its social functions?" Felix hadn't expected to become an expert on human laughter within his first week at the academy, but he nodded. "Of course, Professor. I'd be happy to help everyone understand." As the emergency protocols were officially deactivated and the academy returned to normal operations, Felix found himself surrounded by curious alien students, all eager to learn about this strange human behavior. Trazar approached cautiously. "So when you were making that noise earlier today while we were discussing molecular stability, I was enjoying our conversation," Felix confirmed. "It was a compliment, really." "This changes everything we thought we understood about human communication," Trazar said, antenna twitching with excitement. The next day, Felix stood nervously in front of a packed lecture hall. Students from over 30 different species filled every seat, with more crowding the doorways and even watching remotely from other parts of the academy. "Thank you all for coming," Felix began, his voice slightly unsteady. "Today we're going to talk about laughter, what it means to humans and why we do it." He displayed a series of images and videos showing humans laughing in various situations, friends sharing jokes, audiences at comedy shows, families playing games. "Humans laugh for many reasons," Felix explained. "Sometimes it's because something is funny or unexpected. Sometimes it's to ease tension in uncomfortable situations. And sometimes it's simply because others around us are laughing. It's contagious in a good way." A Dralaxian student with translucent skin raised a tentacle. "Is it true that this laughter releases endorphins in the human brain, similar to what happens during mating rituals?" Felix felt his face flush. "Well, yes, it does release endorphins, which make us feel good, but it's not exactly like. It's more of a social bonding thing than a mating thing, though I suppose it can play a role in attraction too." Another student, a crystalline being from Rigel 7, chimed in with a voice like wind chimes. "Can humans control this response, or is it involuntary?" "Both, actually," Felix replied, finding his rhythm. "We can laugh on purpose to be polite or to fit in socially, but genuine laughter is usually spontaneous. In fact, trying not to laugh when something is really funny can be almost painful." To demonstrate, Felix showed clips of humans trying to suppress laughter in inappropriate situations, eventually failing as the laughter burst out uncontrollably. Several alien students emitted their own species equivalents of surprise or interest. "What causes this funny sensation that triggers laughter?" asked a Serpentine S. Slytherin from the front row. "That's the complicated part," Felix admitted. "Humor varies widely among humans. What one person finds hilarious, another might not react to at all. Generally, though, unexpected connections, subverted expectations, wordplay, or harmless misfortune can trigger it." Felix continued his presentation by showing examples of different types of human humor, carefully selected to be as universally understandable as possible. Some clips elicited confused silence from the alien audience, while others seemed to translate across species barriers, causing ripples of curiosity. After the presentation, Professor Vexnar approached Felix with what appeared to be approval. An excellent introduction to a complex topic, human Felix. I believe this has sparked significant interest among our xenosociology department. They have requested your assistance in a formal study of human humor responses. Felix was surprised but pleased. I'd be happy to help, Professor. Excellent. Report to Laboratory 12 tomorrow after your regular classes. The research team is eager to begin. Felix soon discovered that being a research subject for alien scientists fascinated by human laughter was more exhausting than he'd anticipated. For the next week, he spent hours in Laboratory 12, where a team led by Dr. Zylox, a highly respected xenosociologist with a body like a praying mantis and the meticulous nature of a Swiss watchmaker, conducted numerous experiments. Please view this image and describe your emotional response, Doctor. Zylox instructed, displaying what appeared to be a crude stick figure slipping on a banana. It's trying to be funny, but it's too basic to actually make me laugh, Felix explained. Humor usually needs some element of surprise or cleverness. Dr. Zylox made notes on a holographic pad. Fascinating. Your species requires sophisticated cognitive processing for humor activation. Now, please watch this sequence. The screen showed a compilation of humans experiencing minor accidents, falling into pools, missing chairs when trying to sit, walking into glass doors. Despite himself, Felix found himself chuckling. "There, that noise," exclaimed an assistant researcher, their skin flashing with excitement. "The human is experiencing humor?" "Yes," Felix confirmed. "We sometimes find it funny when people have small accidents where nobody gets seriously hurt. It's called physical comedy." Dr. Zylox tilted her insectoid head. "But these are members of your own species experiencing misfortune. Does this not indicate aggression or dominant satisfaction?" Felix shook his head. "Not really. It's more about the unexpected nature of it and the recognition that we could all make similar mistakes. Actually, we often laugh at ourselves when we do something clumsy." Self-directed humor response. Dr. Zylox seemed particularly interested in this concept. "This requires further investigation." The experiments continued, with Felix explaining different aspects of human humor, from puns to sarcasm to situational comedy. The alien researchers struggled particularly with sarcasm, unable to comprehend why humans would say the opposite of what they meant, and then signal this deception with vocal tone changes. But if all parties know the statement is false, what is the purpose of making it, Doctor? Zylox asked, genuinely confused. "It's just another form of humor," Felix tried to explain. "The humor comes from the contrast between what's said and what's meant, especially when it's obvious to everyone." After a particularly long session analyzing humor across different human cultures, Felix returned to his dormitory exhausted. His roommate, Krex, a six-legged furry being from a high-gravity world, was attempting to operate the entertainment system. Felix human. "I have been studying your species' comedy broadcasts as you suggested. I believe I am beginning to understand the patterns of humor." Felix flopped onto his bed. "That's great, Krex. Any particular type you're enjoying, the one you call slipstick, is most comprehensible to me." "Slapstick," Felix corrected with a smile. "Yes, the exaggerated physical mishaps translate well across species barriers. However, I still struggle with the concept you call irony." Felix sat up, always willing to help bridge cultural gaps despite his fatigue. "Irony is when what happens is the opposite of what you'd expect. Like if a weather forecaster gets caught in unexpected rain or a fire station burns down." Krex's fur rippled in concentration. "So the humor derives from the contradiction between expected outcomes and actual events." "Exactly." "You're getting it." Krex made a strange rumbling noise that Felix had never heard before. It took him a moment to realize that his roommate was attempting to laugh. Were you trying to laugh just now?" Krex's ear tufts flattened in embarrassment. "I was attempting to engage in human-style bonding. Was it incorrect?" Felix felt a surge of fondness for his alien roommate. "It was a good attempt, but you don't need to laugh like a human. How do your people show they're enjoying something? We vibrate our fur in synchronized patterns, Krex demonstrated, his golden coat rippling in mesmerizing waves. It is visible to others of my kind even in low-light conditions. That's really cool, Felix said sincerely, much more subtle than our loud laughing. Over the next few weeks, word spread about the human research project. Felix found himself becoming something of a minor celebrity at the academy, with students from all departments approaching him with questions about human humor and requests for demonstrations of laughter. The Xenosociology department expanded their study, bringing in more human exchange students from other academic institutions. Felix was relieved not to be the sole representative of human humor anymore, though he remained the primary consultant due to his early involvement. During one particular experiment, the research team gathered a mixed group of human exchange students and alien volunteers to watch a series of Earth comedy films, monitoring their biological responses and encouraging discussions afterward. "I understand why the human fell down was meant to be funny," said Glirak, a gelatinous student with multiple eye stalks, "but I do not understand why the other human pretended not to notice. If a member of my species was injured, assistance would be immediate." "He wasn't really hurt," explained Felix, "and ignoring someone's embarrassing moment is sometimes seen as polite in human culture. Polite to ignore distress." Glirak's body pulsed with confusion. "Your species' social dynamics are extraordinarily complex." As the research progressed, some alien students began to develop a rudimentary sense of what humans found funny, even occasionally attempting jokes of their own. Trazar approached Felix in the molecular biology lab one day, antenna quivering with what Felix now recognized as excitement. "Felix Human, I have created a joke following the structural patterns identified in your cultural database." "Let's hear it," Felix encouraged, genuinely curious. Trazar cleared his throat equivalent. "Why did the carbon-based life form cross the spatial divide?" "To reach the opposite terminal point," Felix blinked, then realized it was an alien attempt at the classic "why did the chicken cross the road" joke. He couldn't help but laugh, partly at the joke itself and partly at Trazar's earnest attempt. Trazar's body language shifted to extreme excitement. "I have succeeded in producing the laughter response. This confirms the formulaic nature of certain humor constructs." Felix patted his lab partner on what approximated a shoulder. "You definitely made me laugh, but maybe not exactly for the reasons you think." "That's okay, though humor is complicated even among humans." The cultural exchange was flowing both ways. As Felix learned about the various ways different species expressed enjoyment or amusement, from the Vexlurian's synchronized color changing to the Hrothai's resonant humming, he found himself appreciating the diversity of communication across the galaxy. Professor Vexnar's interspecies communication class had been completely restructured to include an extensive section on non-verbal and paralinguistic communication, with human laughter as a central case study. Felix was invited to be a guest lecturer, an honor unprecedented for a first-year exchange student. "The most important thing to understand about human laughter," Felix explained to the class, "is that context matters enormously. The same laugh can mean completely different things depending on the situation and who's involved." A Traxian student with 4 arms raised one of them. "Our preliminary research indicates 17 distinct categories of human laughter. Is this assessment accurate?" Felix considered this. "That sounds about right, though there's a lot of overlap. There's nervous laughter, polite laughter, genuine amusement laughter, shared experience laughter, surprised laughter." "What about the aggressive laughter?" asked a crystalline Lumidian. "Our observations indicate humans sometimes use laughter to establish dominance hierarchies." Felix nodded soberly. "Yeah, that's mockery or ridicule. It's not considered positive in our culture either. It's using laughter to exclude rather than to bond." Professor Vexnar interjected, "This highlights a crucial aspect of cross-species communication. The same behavior can serve opposite social functions depending on subtle contextual variations." What is the difference, human Felix, between bonding laughter and exclusionary laughter? Intent and inclusion, Felix answered thoughtfully. When we laugh with someone, we're sharing joy. When we laugh at someone, especially if they're not laughing too, it can be hurtful. The discussions in class grew increasingly sophisticated as both human and alien students developed better frameworks for understanding each other's communicative behaviors. Meanwhile, Dr. Zylox's research was yielding interesting results. The xenosociology department had identified physiological patterns in human laughter that corresponded to similar pleasure responses in dozens of other species, suggesting a potential evolutionary convergence despite wildly different biological systems. Your species uses audible expulsions of air to signal social bonding, Dr. Zylox explained during a research review meeting. The Florians use scent modulation, the Q-Arctics use electrical field variations, and the Vache use tactile vibrations. Yet all these mechanisms activate similar neurological reward systems. Felix was fascinated. So different species evolved different ways to do basically the same thing: strengthen social bonds through shared positive experiences. Precisely. This suggests that social bonding mechanisms are not random cultural developments, but necessary adaptations for highly social species. Your laughter is merely Earth's version of a nearly universal phenomenon. The research was gaining attention beyond the Academy. Representatives from the Galactic Diplomatic Corps requested access to the findings to improve interspecies relations, particularly with humans who were relatively new to the galactic community. 6 months into the academic year, the Academy hosted an interspecies cultural festival where each student group showcased aspects of their homeworld's culture. The human contingent, which had grown to 15 students from various Earth nations, decided to host a comedy night. Felix helped organize the event, carefully selecting humor that might translate across species barriers while providing cultural context for jokes that were more Earth-specific. They created a program that included physical comedy, visual humor, and even some carefully explained wordplay. The night of the festival, the human section was packed with curious alien students and faculty. Felix stepped onto the small stage, feeling nervous but excited. "Welcome everyone to Earth Night at the Galactic Cultural Festival. We thought the best way to share our culture was through comedy and laughter, that thing that caused so much confusion when I first arrived." This got a ripple of appreciative responses from the audience, who were now well aware of the initial emergency response triggered by human laughter. "We've put together a variety of comedic performances that we hope will either make you laugh if you've adopted that behavior, or at least help you understand why we humans make these strange noises when we're having fun together." The show began with simple physical comedy human students performing exaggerated pratfalls and choreographed slapstick routines that required little cultural context to appreciate. Many alien species seemed to grasp the humor in unexpected movements and subverted physical expectations. They moved on to visual humor with misdirection and surprise elements, then to situational comedy with short skits that illustrated human social norms being broken in amusing ways. Felix provided brief explanations before each segment, helping the audience understand the context. Throughout the performance, something remarkable happened. Scattered through the audience, alien students began attempting their own versions of laughter. Some were clearly imitations of human sounds, while others incorporated elements of their own species' expressions of amusement. The atmosphere in the room shifted from curious observation to genuine shared enjoyment. When Felix returned to the stage for the finale, he was moved by what he saw. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. When I first arrived at the Academy, my laughter caused panic because it was misunderstood as a distress signal. Now, just 6 months later, I'm hearing all kinds of species joining in with their own versions of laughter. That's what cultural exchange is all about, finding the common ground beneath our differences." The audience responded with a cacophony of appreciative sounds, movements, color changes, and yes, laughter. Professor Vexnar approached the stage, his normally reserved demeanor showing clear signs of excitement. This evening has been a remarkable demonstration of interspecies communication adaptation, the professor announced. The research begun by human Felix's arrival has evolved into one of the most significant cross-cultural studies in the Academy's history. The Galactic Scientific Council has approved funding for an expanded research initiative on communication convergence across sentient species, with the human laughter response as a central case study. The announcement was met with enthusiastic approval from the audience. After the formal presentation concluded, students and faculty mingled in the reception area, practicing jokes and sharing stories about communication misunderstandings. Trazar found Felix by the refreshment table. Felix human, the comedic performance was highly effective. I experienced genuine amusement response 15 distinct times. Thanks, Trazar, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I have been studying the structural patterns of human humor diligently, Trazar continued. I believe I have improved my joke formulation. Would you evaluate another attempt? Sure, go ahead, Felix encouraged. Trazar straightened his posture in what Felix recognized as the alien's formal presentation stance. What is the difference between a poorly dressed man on a bicycle and a well-dressed man on a tricycle? Felix waited for the punchline, genuinely curious. Attire, Trazar announced triumphantly. It took Felix a second to process the wordplay between attire and attire, but when he got it, he burst out laughing a genuine, surprised laugh of appreciation. Trazar's antenna vibrated rapidly in excitement. Success! I have produced genuine amusement. The structural formula was effective. Felix, still chuckling, patted his friend on the back. That was actually a good joke. You're getting the hang of human wordplay. Nearby alien students, hearing Felix's laughter, turned with interest rather than alarm. Some even moved closer, hoping to understand what had triggered the human's positive response. Dr. Zylox approached, recording device in hand. Fascinating interaction. Trazar, would you be willing to repeat your humor attempt for documentation? We are compiling examples of successful cross-species humor adaptation. As Trazar proudly repeated his joke for the researcher, Felix looked around at the gathering. 6 months ago, his laughter had triggered emergency protocols and evacuation procedures. Now it was being studied, emulated, and even appreciated by beings from across the galaxy. Krex joined him, fur rippling in greeting. The cultural festival has been most informative, Felix human. I have observed 17 distinct species attempting to incorporate human-style humor into their communication patterns. I've noticed that too, Felix said. It's pretty amazing how quickly everyone's adapted. It is not surprising, Krex replied thoughtfully. All sentient species seek connection with others. When a new method of bonding is discovered, it is logical to explore its utility. Professor Vexnar gathered the human students for a group photograph for the Academy archives, commemorating what was already being called a landmark event in interspecies relations. You have all contributed significantly to our understanding of human culture, the professor told them. More importantly, you have demonstrated how initial misunderstandings can, through patience and mutual education, transform into opportunities for connection. Felix felt a sense of pride unlike anything he'd experienced before. He had come to the Academy to study alien cultures and sciences, never expecting that his most significant contribution would be simply explaining why humans laugh. As the festival wound down, Felix found himself sitting with a small group of students from various worlds, sharing stories about their homeworlds and first impressions of the Academy. When Felix described his panic during the initial laughter-induced emergency, the entire group erupted in their species' various expressions of amusement, a harmonious cacophony of sounds, movements, and color changes. In that moment, surrounded by beings who once thought his laughter signaled distress, but now recognized it as an invitation to connect, Felix understood something profound about the universe. Despite evolving on different worlds under different suns, sentient beings everywhere shared the fundamental desire to communicate, to understand, and to bond with one another. The emergency alarms that had once been triggered by human laughter now had a new algorithm, one that could distinguish between distress sounds and social bonding vocalizations from dozens of species. The universal translator had been updated with extensive notes on the contextual meanings of human laughter, and human diplomatic teams throughout the galaxy were briefed on how their natural expressions might be misinterpreted by unfamiliar species. By the end of the academic year, Felix had co-authored a paper with Dr. Zylox and Professor Vexnar titled Convergent Evolution of Social Bonding Mechanisms Across Divergent Biological Systems, with human laughter as its central case study. It was published in the prestigious Galactic Journal of Xenosociology and quickly became required reading for diplomatic corps members across the Alliance. On his last day before returning to Earth for the summer break, Felix sat with his friends in the Academy's Garden Dome. Trazar, Krex, and several other alien students had gathered to say goodbye and make plans for the following academic year. "I still cannot believe your distress signal is how you express joy," said Mixa, a floating jellyfish-like student from an ocean world. "When we first heard it, my species thought you were experiencing respiratory collapse." Felix smiled. "And I never imagined that your species' happiness was expressed by changing to ultraviolet colors we humans can't even see." "The universe is full of such delightful contradictions," Krex observed, his fur rippling in what Felix now recognized as contemplative amusement. "What begins as misunderstanding becomes the foundation for deeper connection." Trazar raised what approximated a hand. "I have prepared a farewell joke, structured according to human patterns but incorporating multi-species references." Everyone turned to him expectantly. "What do you call an academy where one species' distress signal is another species' bonding mechanism?" Trazar paused dramatically. "A laughing matter." There was a moment of silence before Felix burst out laughing, partly at the joke itself and partly at Trazar's perfect delivery. One by one, the alien students joined in with their own species' expressions of amusement: rippling fur, color changes, ultrasonic trills, and even attempts at human-style laughter. As Felix looked around at his friends, he reflected on how far they'd all come. A sound that once triggered panic now brought them together in shared joy, a universal reminder that even across the vast differences of biology, culture, and evolution, connection was always possible. All it took was the willingness to listen, learn, and sometimes just laugh together.